Welcome everyone! My name is Limbic, and this is Let's Learn with Limbic Episode 9, the show where I usually analyze my StarCraft replays in order to identify my mistakes so that we can both learn from them, but today we are going to be doing something a little different. As you perhaps gleaned from the title of this episode, this is going to be the final Let's Learn with Limbic. And the reason is because I think I've just basically run out of things to say. There's only so many things I can talk about when looking at my own replays that I think will be useful to both me and to a viewer that I can explain in such a way that I think that most people will actually be able to understand. And I also think that, especially over these past few episodes, I kind of started just repeating the same point again. So the series is not being cancelled. I just consider this to be it completing with this final episode. And I still love StarCraft. I still play it and watch it every day. I'm cooking up other StarCraft projects to do that I may be able to actually come out with. We'll see, it depends. But I just think that this series in particular has kind of reached the maximum amount of value that it can, long story short. So, what are we going to do today? Instead of leaving you in the dark, I'm going to at least try to kind of teach you how to analyze your own replays so that you can kind of do the same thing yourself that we've been doing on the show here. So let's come over to my replays. And let's just pick one kind of at random. So let's take this Catalina game. It was me playing Terran against a Zerg named Derek. So let's just go ahead and load this up. By the way, if my voice sounds a little weird, apparently my nose decided to get stuffy like the moment after I started recording. So that's fun. And alright, so here we are in the game. And what I normally do the moment I get into a game is just ×8 it. And then I open the production tab. And the reason why I do this is I'm just going to be staring at the production tab for this phase of the analyzing. And I'm going to be looking, am I building SCVs? This is single-handedly the most important thing, especially if you are a new player. If you are brand new to the game and you're looking to get better, I recommend that this is just what you do most of the time, because a lot of things you're just not going to be able to understand because you don't really have the experience or the game knowledge that kind of just comes from having played this game for a while. So, okay, yeah, there's stuff going on. But look what's happened. I stopped building SCVs. What's the reason for that? Well, one, I only have 50 minerals, but two, I got distracted by this attack. So the important thing is to kind of make sure that you never make excuses for yourself. So you can't just say, oh yeah, this is fine that I'm not building SCVs right now because I'm distracted with this attack. No, it's not fine. You should be building SCVs, always. So we'll just go ahead and resume that. I recognize, alright, I need to be better with my crisis management and make sure that I keep building SCVs. Look here, I took a break from building SCVs for no reason. I need to work on that. You should always be building SCVs. The only reason why there should not be SCVs in your production tab is because you already have, you're either going all in or you already have like 68, if you know what I mean. Because of course 68 is kind of like the maximum number that you would ever want. So I'm just watching, still building SCVs, took a little break there. I think I was supply blocked there, which obviously you never want to be, but again, here comes an attack. I recognize that I've probably lost at this point. You can see again, I stopped building SCVs for a while there. My crisis management still needs a little work. I was a little better that time. Again, here, not building SCVs, there we go, 3 at a time. This game was kind of bad for me, this was after taking a little bit of a break. I'm trying to get back into it, and there's meteoritics that fly into my base, and I realize that the game is over. So, I need to work on my macro a little bit. I was not building SCVs for several moments in that game. Obviously, this definitely was not my best game, I'll go ahead and say that, but that's something that I need to work on. I took a break, and apparently my macro suffered as a result. So now that we're done with that, we'll go ahead and decrease the speed. And by the way, if your computer can't handle ×8, if it's just, really low FPS for you and you can't even tell what's going on, that's fine. Just go what your computer can handle. But remember, for that stage of the game, you're mostly just looking to see if you are producing workers and to kind of figure out how the game generally went on. So I know that my opponent just played really aggressively, and eventually I folded under all that pressure here. So let's look at, again, okay, good, I'm building SCVs. I'm not building SCVs here because my build just kind of dictates that I cut SCVs at this point, but for the beginning of this game, at least, I'm doing fine. So now we're going to go ahead, and since I know that the cheese did not come super early, I'm going to skip to 6 minutes. I've said this in pretty much every Let's Learn with Limbic, and the reason is because if there was no cheese, or you're not trying to learn a new build, which neither is the case here, there's no point in watching the first few minutes of a game, because it's just going to be you building workers and building. So you might as well skip those first 6.5 minutes, so that your replay viewing sessions are far more efficient. And the nice thing about going ×8 just through the entire game to see if you're building workers the entire time is that you will be able to jump through the replays without having to wait for it to load, basically. So let's go ahead and look what happened here. My opponent sent in a ton of Zerglings. Honestly, I should have seen this coming. I saw no third expansion for my opponent, which is, it's 6 minutes 30. My opponent should definitely have it done right now. I should have started a bunker the moment I saw that, but I didn't, and I'm going to be punished for that. I thought it was kind of like a roach thing. Here I see all these Zerglings, but whoop, I apparently was just not really paying much attention to the map because I didn't send these Hellions back. I didn't immediately start a bunker. I didn't have a supply depot here. I could have had this SCV building a supply depot, and I probably would have taken a lot less damage, etc., etc. This was not my best game, but that's okay. That's why we watch replays, because while playing this game, it may have felt like, oh, this is total BS. Why is it fair that Zerg can just make this many Zerglings so easily and just completely overwhelm me? Look how many Zerglings he has compared to the amount of units I have. This is so unfair. BS, 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 and just complain and not actually learn anything from this. I learned that I actually played this game awfully. This was one of the worst games I've ever played, and in fact, I'm a little embarrassed to actually be showing it to you all here, but we will do what we must. So, these are the kind of things that you want to be looking for. Did I see something and not really react to it right away? Should I have been paying more attention to the minimap? Have I been building SCVs the entire time? If I'm not building SCVs, what's the reason? Am I supply blocked? Obviously, that's something I'll need to work on if that's the case. Am I just forgetting to? Am I at a point in my build where I'm supposed to not be building SCVs? Am I, just getting distracted by pressure like this? What's the reason? Figure that out so that you can work on it. So I know I need to be better about remembering to just continue building SCVs and units while under pressure. Look, this factory and this barracks are not doing anything. To be fair, I didn't really have much money, but this barracks could have been producing a marine, this factory could have been producing a widow mine, this command center could have been producing an SCV. Do you get what I'm saying? Never allow yourself to make excuses. You can't say, oh, well, it's fine that I wasn't doing stuff because I was distracted, I was under pressure, I was trying not to die. Because the thing that separates bad players from good players is the ability to remember to continue their macro even under non-regular situations. Anyone could just do the same build again and again and again under the same situations until they've gotten it perfected, and then they could execute that build like a pro. You could just play games against bots and do the same build every time and set the bot to very easy and just economic focus so that it basically leaves you alone the entire game, and get your build super amazing and make it so that you can execute it like a pro every time. But then you get into a real game and your opponent does stuff like this to you and you get owned and you have no idea why. Just remember, there's no excuses. You have to be sure that you are actually playing correctly every time. And if you're not, then that's something you need to work on. So let's go ahead and just jump into another replay. I think that we've seen everything we needed to see here. My opponent just kept pressuring me. I took way too much damage each time, and eventually I folded. That game was lost at that first attack. I was just kind of hoping my opponent made a huge mistake. I lost way too many SCVs there. So let's come into this game on Secret Spring. Welcome to the most frustrating game in the world, by the way, and you'll perhaps see what I mean by that. So let's just go ahead. Once again, ×8, open up the production tab. Now, unfortunately, this is TVT, but I know that I am the red Terran, so I'm just going to be looking up here. And I'm just going to be staring here. When am I not building SCVs? Okay, here, but that's fine because that is what my build actually dictates for me to do, to cut SCVs. I'm not building SCVs here, obviously, because I was building an orbital command. Obviously, if there's things like that, then it's okay to not be building workers. But things like, oh, I wasn't building SCVs because I got distracted distracted by pressure, that's not an acceptable response. If you're not supposed to be building SCVs, then it's okay. Otherwise, you should always be building them. So, here's the Cloak Banshee I wasn't prepared for. I got greedy here and built a second Banshee instead of Raven, and I should have built the Raven first because I did no scouting of my opponent and I had no idea what he was doing. It was very, very likely he was going for a Cloak Banshee of his own, and I was not at all prepared for it. That was a mistake. So I just managed to get actually a lot of damage done with my own Banshee. I've killed 10 workers with her, and my opponent killed, let's see, 10 workers. What do you know? So I thought I was actually kind of ahead here, when in reality I was not. So I thought I was ahead, so I put on some pressure. I did some really terrible macro there, which you don't need to see. My opponent drops this. The reason why this attack is going so well is because my opponent had no units in his base because he was doing that drop. I got kind of lucky, and we kind of just go into this very wacky base trade scenario that happens all too often in Terran versus Terran. My opponent flies a command center here, turns it into an orbital. I had no idea, and I just let him get away with it and continue mining. I assumed that my opponent was on like 0 economy at this point, and I assumed that I basically had already won, which, again, mistake. Never assume that you've already won. Like, why is my opponent still in this game? If this is his only base, he's not mining from it, there's no way that any respectable opponent would think that they still have a chance if that were really the case. And sure, there's a chance that he was just BMing me, but you should never just assume that. And then what happened here was I accidentally fly 2 medevacs full of units into my opponent's marines, which in a low econ situation like that, that seriously was game ending. I probably could have won this game until that situation because of my opponent's severe lack of production, and I still had a healthy economy as soon as this command center floated over here. So that's the thing. These are the kind of things that you want to look for. Identify why you lost the game. And the game is not always just lost at the big battle where it's death ball versus death ball and then whoever's death ball wins. Oftentimes it's lost way before that. Like in the previous game, that game was actually lost at the first attack where I lost tons of SCVs to Zerglings. The game was not lost when my opponent flew tons of Mutalisks into my base. This game, however, was lost when I accidentally flew 2 medevacs full of units into these marines, just because it was such a low econ situation that losses like that are unrecoverable. It can be a little difficult, and it does require some experience to actually figure out when a game is lost and why it was lost, but if you keep trying, you will manage to get there. Look, are you building workers when you're actually supposed to be? It's kind of harder with Zerg because sometimes you're supposed to be building masses of drones and sometimes you're not, but with Terran and Protoss, just stare at the production tab, go as fast as your computer can handle, and just stare at the production tab. Are you building workers? If you're not, why aren't you? Are you supply blocked? Work on that. Did you get distracted under pressure? Work on that. Is it what your build actually dictates for? Okay, then that's fine. But pretty much in any other situation, then it's not okay. I know this was kind of rambly, and I know this was perhaps a little different than what you might expect from Let's Learn with Limbic, but I wanted to make sure that I at least did something to not leave you in the dark. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed Let's Learn with Limbic, maybe you should still subscribe to the channel because I am going to be still producing StarCraft content. I've got Star Class, which is a StarCraft 2 show aimed at complete beginners. The next episode of Star Class is going to be really important. I think it's really great for, I think it's going to be really great for people who are just getting into the game and want to get better. I've also got, other shows about Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, and maybe I'll expand to other games. I'm working on that. There's no promises right now because it just depends on what I'm able to do. Anyways, again, I know this was kind of rambly, but thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. This was the last Let's Learn with Limbic. Maybe this series will return in Legacy of the Void, although, again, no promises. We'll just have to see how it goes. My name has been Limbic, and I will see you all next time.